Because the problems that afflict contract drafting manifest themselves in different ways. An inefficient process, lack of guidelines, lack of training, questionable substance. We'll talk about those and doubtless others. But perhaps a fundamental manifestation is the nature of contract prose itself. So just to give a flavor of that, I had a look online for a contract drafted by one of the Magic Circle firms. I chose the first one I encountered. I spent 2 minutes looking down, scrolling through just to pick a sentence that suited my purposes, namely one that wasn't too complicated. And I came up with this. So I thought I'd just show you what I'd make of this myself. So, without prejudice to, I think that's unduly legalistic. I'd just say subject to. Clause, I'd use section myself, but I won't fight that battle. I will make it a lowercase c, just to be consistent with what guides on English usage generally have to say. The purchaser agrees that the seller may. I'm going to get rid of the purchaser agrees that, because it's what I call throat clearing. It refers to the tendency of drafters to stick an extraneous verb structure onto the front of a provision. And this purchaser agrees that, it's a contract. We know that the purchaser is agreeing to everything in the contract. So it does no good to say sporadically that they're agreeing that something or other applies. The seller may, I'm going to get rid of this at any time between the date of this agreement and the closing, because the timing parameter is actually addressed at the end of the sentence. In its sole discretion is rhetorical emphasis, because we're dealing with discretion by saying may. So tacking on another thing saying, hey, this is discretion, is extraneous in this context. Or may procure, that any member of the seller's group may. Procure, I would use the word cause, functions in the context of obligations. In discretion, it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to strike this entirely. That leaves us with any member of the seller's group may. Well, seller's group happens to include the seller, so I can strike the seller may. And in fact, this contract uses the defined term seller's group company. So if you're going to create a defined term, you might as well use it. So I'm going to strike member. Why don't I just strike the whole thing? No. The seller's group may make to any one or more retained employees an offer. I'm actually going to use the verb offer. The verb's good. Abstract nouns like offer, not so good. In writing, I don't think we care whether it's writing or orally. What we care about is the contract with the employee. To employ such retained employees. Such instead of those is hardcore legalistic writing. So I'm going to say those. Or actually, more to the point, I'm going to say one or more, because this parens s thing is very clunky. I'm going to say one or more instead. Do I care if it's a new contract? No, that's it, because that's redundant. It's implicit in the fact that when it's taking effect. So after all that is taken into account, this is what I'm left with. I'm sure there's room for a discussion of particular changes I made, but the net effect is we have something that is less than half the length of the original. It's clearer, and it avoids some of the substantive misconceptions inherent in the original. So I don't think this sentence is anomalous. It's certainly representative of the contract that it came from. More generally, I think it's representative of big law firm drafting in the UK and the US, and it's analogous to the misconceptions, the shortcomings I see in big company contract templates the world over. So I think what we have here is dysfunction. It's pervasive and systematic. So it's a matter of considering, okay, how do we structure a system that allows us to escape from this sort of dysfunction, and how it fits more generally into the different components of the contract drafting process.